Today is going to be a beautiful day, and so I want to spend a lot of my day outside with the kids and with my husband, and I'm going to make some easy things that we can eat throughout the day, cold things because the weather's warming up. But first, I'm going with a staple thing that I've been loving the past couple of weeks, and I've been testing out different versions, and this is my favorite one so far. So I'm making a light rye sourdough bread. I love having homemade sourdough bread on hand, whether it's for sandwiches or for toast in the morning. It's just a staple thing all year round. So right now I'm adding in some honey and I have molasses to make this a darker, richer bread. And then I'm going to flavor it with a few more things, but this is kind of my base for my rye breads. For all of my bread recipes that I make, I use all-purpose flour, and I use it because it has less gluten in it than bread flours. And so for me, it works better because I do have a gluten sensitivity. So using fermented breads that are sourdough along with just regular all-purpose flour versus bread flour works better for me, but you can definitely use bread flour. It makes beautiful loaves, but they contain more gluten. So I'm just putting in a good amount of all-purpose flour here, and then the rest of the flour for this bread recipe is going to be light rye flour. So it's a lighter, finer flour than you would use for pumpernickel or a darker rye bread that would have a coarse and dark rye flour. But today I'm just using this light rye flour. It's organic, and I believe it's King Arthur flour. If you're looking for one, I'll try and link one down below. This is now one of my absolute favorite sourdough breads. I made it last week, and I think we ate the whole loaf in one day. It was so delicious. So if you're looking for a rye recipe, I'll leave mine here below. I like to add in fennel seed and caraway seed. I've even tried adding anise to it, but I didn't like that as much. I like the combination of just the fennel and the caraway. I think it is just a beautiful combo. I added everything to my dough tub, and I take it off the scale so I don't mess up my scale's calibration because it can kind of throw it off if you mix things on top of it. So I take it all off and I mixed it together, and I'm actually just going to sprinkle my salt on top this time. I'm kind of testing out whether that makes a difference or not, because I know some people say it does, but I've never found it to make a difference in mine. So I'm kind of curious to find out. And I'm just using a good amount of my Celtic sea salt here. That is my favorite salt. I love how much moisture content it has, and it just has a delicious kind of briny flavor to it. Anytime I'm mixing my doughs together, I always have a little dish of water, and I just kind of dip my hand in there, and then I'll touch the bread, or the dough in this case, and it helps it not to stick to your hands quite as much. So I know a lot of times you'll add flour to yeast doughs, of doughs that are a little bit stickier, but in this case with sourdough, I actually just like to use water, and that helps it not stick to my hand. So that's a good little trick if you're not sure how to work with really hydrated doughs. I know a lot of people have questions about that, and so that's kind of my little trick, and it always works for me. Today is kind of going to be an outside day for us. It's gorgeous today, so we're all going to be outside and do a lot of things that we need to get done in the garden. I'm going to make a quick lunch before we head out, and I'm making something that's so delicious. I know everybody's going to love this, and it's good for hot days like this. I'm using my soba noodles. They're brown rice and buckwheat noodles, and they're gluten-free and just whole grain. And then I'll put a ton of different vegetables, just whatever's in season basically. So I have carrots and some of these beautiful radishes. These are so nice. Purple cabbage or red cabbage. I love cabbage. I also have some of these sugar snappies. So those are always really yummy and fresh to have in salads. And then I'll probably put some green onions and cilantro. Then I'm gonna make a really yummy like peanut dressing sauce to go over this delicious cold soba noodle salad. It's gonna be really quick too. So first I'm just putting my soba noodles in a pot of boiling water, and I didn't even salt it this time. I just put them straight in with a little bit of oil, and soba noodles tend to stick really badly. So I always put a little bit of oil in there. after I drain them, I can rinse them under cold water and that will unstick them. So you can rinse them once to kind of cool them off and stop the cooking process, and then I let them sit there, and while I prep my vegetables, they kind of start to stick together, but don't worry. All you have to do is rinse them again and they'll be unstuck. And that is how I prefer to store it too. So if you don't have a family that's about to sit down and eat the whole pasta salad that we're making, then just keep your noodles separate and your sauce separate, and then you can just rinse those noodles right before you're ready to eat it or serve it, and they will be perfect and ready to go. You could chop these radishes any number of ways. You could try to do matchsticks, but the goal is just to kind of get them to be nice and small so that they kind of just fade into the salad. And my goal with the salad is to have the buckwheat noodles be the base, but then get as many vegetables in there as we can. So the noodles are almost just an avenue to see how many vegetables we can squeeze in. So I just like to chop them nice and small, and that way my kids don't really notice. And even though radishes tend to have like a little bit of a peppery bite, when you put them in the rich kind of fatty peanut dressing, you don't taste that quite as much. It almost cuts through it, especially with a little bit of sweetness that's in there. And I think that it kind of mellows out the radishes. But you could always leave those out. You can kind of play around with whatever veggies you like for this. That's what's so nice. And so many springtime veggies that are so fresh right now are really delicious in this. So it's a good recipe for all those spring veggies that we love. That's actually about good. So I'll save these radishes for a different salad, but that'll be good. And then for the cabbage and for the carrots, I'm just gonna grate these up. And I'm not using a whole cabbage, that would be way too much, but maybe about a fourth of a cabbage, maybe a third of a cabbage, depending on the size of your cabbage. And we'll just shred this with a box grater. Usually in these kinds of salads, you'll find a lot of edamame, little soybeans, but I'm actually gonna swap that out for sugar snap peas. I love these and I grow them, they're in season. So I'm gonna use a few of these, and I'm actually gonna cut them in about thirds. That way they're really easy to bite within the salad. They're so crunchy and sweet. I love the freshness of this salad. It reminds me of a Thai fresh roll that come in rice paper, and then they have the fresh veggies inside and you can dip it in peanut sauce. So it's kind of similar to that, but it's a soba noodle version. I love to add even more freshness than just the vegetables. So I'm adding in some sliced green onions and cilantro, which you can totally substitute for something else or just parsley or leave it out. We're also going to add in lime juice, which adds a really nice brightness and kind of tanginess and tartness that's really good in the salad. And I'm also making a peanut dressing or a peanut sauce that you can use to top the noodles, and all the veggies get coated in it, and it's really yummy. I'm just using some unsalted, unsweetened natural peanut butter. And then to that, I'm adding in some rice vinegar, and that's going to add a nice kind of tang to it as well. And then I like to crush in a couple cloves of garlic, and you could either microplane this in with a grater or you could just chop it up really finely, but I love the flavor garlic adds to this. And then I'll add in a little bit of sesame oil or toasted sesame oil, and then I mix that all together, and then we're going to thin it out by adding in some hot water. So in my tea kettle, I just have some water that's heated up, and I'll just add in about a quarter cup of hot water at a time until I get it to the consistency that's good for pouring over the noodles. And you can kind of do that to your own personal preference. And then because I'm using just all natural peanut butter, I like to add in a little bit of maple syrup, and this gives the peanut butter that perfect sweetness that just coats all the veggies and makes everything taste amazing. Then I just added in some salt so everything is well seasoned. You could add pepper too, and you could even add in sriracha or chili paste or chili crisp. There's so many different kind of spicier sauces that you can add a little bit to this and make it into a spicy peanut sauce. And then I also added in the juice of that one lime. Now, since we're going to eat this for lunch today, I'm just going ahead and I'm coating all my noodles in my sauce because I know that we'll eat it. And so I'll put a little bit of sauce in the noodles, toss that together, and then top the pasta or the noodles with all of those beautiful veggies that I already chopped up. And then I'll drizzle the rest of the sauce right over the top when we're ready to serve. I want to tell you guys about today's video sponsor, Element. Element is a zero sugar electrolyte drink mix that you just mix into water, which is what I'm doing now. And it's great for anyone who's looking to restore health through hydration, which is something I'm actually really passionate about. I feel like a lot of times we just look at our diet and we forget to look at the things we're drinking or not drinking, our electrolyte imbalances. So many of these things can be missed. So it helps you stay hydrated and avoid nutrient deficiencies and imbalances and avoid things like fatigue and brain fog and low energy levels. There's so many things that are linked to this, and good hydration is not just about drinking tons of water, but it's making sure that you balance those electrolytes and not just flush them all out. I know as a busy and still nursing mom, this actually happens really easily. So just throwing a package of it in my purse or putting it in a water bottle and taking it out with me in the garden, especially during the heat of summer when it's really easy to get dehydrated, or even just in the morning, instead of just having a bunch of coffee trying to fuel myself up, it's really important for me to hydrate properly and make sure that I'm gonna have a clear head for the day and good energy. So I love that Element's perfect for just everyday health. Whether you're a mom or a gardener, or maybe you have kids that are in sports, drinking Element is so much better than all of the energy drinks with all the crazy ingredients and dyes out there that are usually jam-packed with sugar. You definitely want to avoid those at all costs. But there's actually a ton of research revealing that optimal health occurs when you have higher levels, 2 to 3 times higher than the government recommendations. So we actually need more salt, not less. If you want to try incorporating Element into your daily routine too, I will leave my link down below. It's drinkelement.com/healthy Elizabeth, and they're going to gift you with a free sample pack with any order of 8 different flavors, so you can kind of try them all out and see which one you like the best. And I also wanted to mention they have great customer service, so trying Element is totally risk-free. If you try it and you don't love it, then you can keep the product or give it to a friend and just ask for your money back, and they'll give it to you, no questions asked, and see how much you love it and how it makes you feel. But trust me, there's a flavor for everyone. There's even flavors that you can serve hot with hot water. It's like chocolate, caramel, saltiness. So if you love like those cafe style drinks, or you're trying to cut back on coffee, this is a great sugar-free substitute that's going to give you tons of energy and make you feel really good and hydrated. Now I'm just shaping that dough I made earlier so I can let it do a bench rest, which is where you just let it sit on the counter and kind of build up its shape. So you form it once and then I'll come back and form it again later. This afternoon, I planted one of my favorite things that I grow, and that is just a lettuce leaf blend. There's so many different types you can grow, whether it's like romaine or head lettuces or just loose leaf. And I love loose leaf garden blends because they're cut and come again. It saves so much money. Instead of buying containers at the store of organic lettuce, I take one package of seeds that costs about $3 and turn it into however many salads I want. I feel like every year my garden becomes more important to me, and it's something I really enjoy, and just brings me and my family so much joy. So today me and the family planted a Meyer lemon tree, and this is one that I can both cook with and is also just beautiful to have on our patio, and I love waking up every morning and getting to look at this new little tree. For dinner tonight, I'm making a really easy but delicious smoky black bean soup. And I'm using a little bit of chipotle and adobo sauce that I had left in the fridge from a previous meal this week. So I'm just chopping up some onion and a red bell pepper, and that's kind of going to be the base of our soup. This is one of those really easy pantry meals that I feel like I could make almost any time, because I always have either canned beans or dry beans in the pantry, and things like broth and onions. So it's really simple to put together. It has such a great flavor and texture. It kind of reminds me of chili or tortilla soup. I love that it's completely meat and dairy free. So I've been sauteing my onions and bell pepper and a little bit of garlic in avocado oil, and now I'm going to add in 1 can of diced tomatoes. You could also use fire roasted diced tomatoes. That would be perfect for this. So I'm just going to add that all in and top it off with about 2 cups or so of vegetable broth. I can always thin it out later by adding a little more, but I'm going to start with 2 cups, and then I'm going to add in all 3 cans of those drained and rinsed black beans. I'm going to keep my seasonings pretty simple today and just use some cumin and paprika. You could also use smoked paprika, but we already have the adobo sauce that's going in, so that's going to add that nice smoky flavor that is going to go really well with these black beans. While I let the soup simmer, I'm going to go ahead and bake off this light rye sourdough. So I'm just going to kind of pull it up from the Banneton basket and make sure it's not sticking. And then I'll plop it out on some unbleached parchment paper. And I'll do that, and then I'll have my big Dutch oven preheating in the oven and getting nice and hot. I usually use my Banneton baskets either with a liner, or lately I've just been flouring my Banneton baskets because it gives them this really beautiful ring around the edges that I just love. So while my oven's finishing preheating, I'm just going to head over to my blender, and I'm going to put some of this soup in the blender and blend it up and get it nice and smooth. And then the rest of it I'll leave whole and the beans intact. That way there's still some texture to it. And I think that's key with soups like this, is I don't want a complete puree. I still want it to have some texture and meatiness to it. So by just pureeing a cup or 2 of it and adding that in, you get a really beautiful texture. After I puree that cup or 2, I just add it back into the soup, and then I'll stir it up. And I love finishing soups like this with a little bit of lime juice. It kind of helps break up the heaviness of black beans and goes so well with that chipotle adobo sauce. I just topped it with a little bit of sour cream, or you could do Greek yogurt, and then green onions and cilantro are always so nice and fresh on top. And I also served it with a slice of the rye bread, and it was so delicious. This bread is amazing. Thanks again to Element for sponsoring today's video, and I will leave my link for you down below.